All right, I'm going to start off by just practicing picking up Atlas's front feet, and I kind of want him to just hold it up for just a second. That one was decent. He wanted to kind of pull his knee forward, but that's all right. He's holding it up. There we go. That was what I was looking for. That was much better time. I just want him to kind of hold it in a position where where I could eventually pick it out. So he got a little scared there. I think there was another horse moving around behind him. I think that's what it was. But it's just important to just, like, nothing happened, you're fine. And then we just kind of move on with the lesson. So it's not a big deal. I'm not going to look around and like, oh, what was that? And we're not going to make a big deal about it. That was really nice try right there. He was really good. He held it up. I just kind of placed my hand underneath and I held it up for just a second. That's exactly what I'm looking for here. So I've really broken this down into pieces, because at first he was just barely lifting his weight off. Then he was picking it up a second. Then he was picking it higher. Now he's holding it for a second. So he's really doing quite good. So I'm just doing the same thing on this side. It's just a little bit harder to see because of the brown pen panels, but same thing. I just want him to pick it up and then just barely hold it for a second. That one, he really pulled it down pretty quickly. So I'm just going to ask him for it again, and then I'll reward that one. So it's important with, really, especially with the feet handling. It is with everything, but I found it more important with the feet handling is that you really only click for improvements and then the things you're asking for. And then if the horse really goes back and regresses quite a bit, like after a couple times he's not getting it, maybe he's in a new place, maybe he's distracted, whatever's going on, then I would kind of reduce your criteria a bit. But I feel like the feet for me and the Mustangs took a long time. I'm just kind of following him here because he was just not picking it up, and I'm just going to continue asking until I get it. So he picked it up there, but he just there we go. He just kind of pushed it back down. So I waited until I got the proper movement. So what I was talking about was I would reward a lot for things that were close, but not quite. And so I feel like we didn't progress as much as we did, or as much as we could have. I think I anthropomorphized a little bit too much and was like, oh, well, he's close, he's close, he's close. And then he's always just close. He's never getting better. So that was my thought about his feet. Overall, he was pretty good. But now I'm going to move into the desensitizing. So we're using the cone, and I want to just have him touch the cone, and then I'm going to jump. So I'm trying to do a little bit of consent behavior. So when he touches the cone, then I do something that would be scary. I'd be doing some desensitizing for him. And really, like, the first time he jumped, and the rest of the times he was like, okay, this is fine. So this seemed to work out pretty well for him as far as using it in this way. I do use it with the stick and the rope and some other things, like as far as desensitizing goes. Overall, I probably won't use it again. I can't say won't ever, but I was just trying to experiment with some things. The Mustangs are an experiment, so I wanted to try the consent behaviors, also called like a start button, and I felt like overall it was decent, but I had an issue with the start button, which I talk about in the other videos where I use the start button as well. Is that it's just another behavior. So I felt like he wasn't really necessarily giving me consent. He was just touching the cone because he's been touching the cone. There I moved and he was like, holy crap, you're in a different area. So I'm just going to ignore that. I'm going to wait till he touches the cone. And then when he gives me a good behavior, which in this case, he's just staying there being pre-relaxed, I will click him while I jump. So I started off like parallel to his left shoulder, and then I'm kind of working my way around him. And this is just preparation for like mounting. So we've went over like him seeing me from the fence before. I've stood on the mounting block before a little bit. We haven't done a whole lot, but I'm really going to cover a lot more of that in this video. And this is just how I started it, with just doing one jump, and then I do that a few times. And if he's not really having a reaction to it, then I move around kind of in a big circle around him. And then as the video goes on, I do 2 jumps, and then I start hitting on the mounting block. So I do speed a lot of this up because I think you get the idea. You can see what I'm doing. It doesn't need to be in real time. But I think overall this worked pretty well. This video is from October, and I think the previous one or the one before that is going to be from like August, July. So he had a couple months off. So working with them is really sporadic. So that probably could definitely play a role in why I don't like the consent button, start button. It could have been because I wasn't being consistent with it as well. So maybe I'm being harsher than I should be, but that's just my idea on it right now. That could always change. So at least I'm open to using it again in the future. But this was my work with it. I think later on, I'll probably, if I got another Mustang, definitely put a halter on and do that. And then I would probably just do this from the end of a halter and not necessarily use the cone. I felt like it kind of, like he was touching it and he'd lower his head, but he was definitely not completely relaxed because he's bringing his head back up right away. So he's not staying down in that relaxed place. He's coming right back up. So that's where I don't think the consent button necessarily works. Like, I don't think he's saying, yeah, go ahead and jump. I think he's just thinking, okay, I touched this cone, I get a treat. So, and then now that I'm further along with them, I feel like, again, he was holding in tension in his body while I was doing this, and that's why he wanted to continue to kind of be spooky and worried about things, is he had all this tension in his body that needed to be released, and that would have made things go faster. So, it's definitely a good option. I just kind of wanted to share my journey with it and with the Mustang, so that's kind of my thoughts on it. It did work. He is better with it. So like now I've started jumping twice. I've done that a couple times here and he's fine with it. So it's not escalating him very much. So the goal for this is going to be, do a few more jumps, add up until you can jump up and down like about 5 or 6 times, maybe more, to kind of give that stimulation, like you're gonna get up, like jump on their back or put a foot in the stirrup, and then you keep getting closer as you go. So I'm not starting out right next to his shoulder, which I wouldn't do anyways. But I'm just gonna bring in the mounting block here and kind of see what he remembers of that. I have been on the mounting block around him at least once. It might have been a couple more times, but definitely he's seen me on it at least once. So I'm going to start out with that just the same way I did with the jumping, as I wait for him to touch the cone, and then I go on the first step. As soon as I get up to the first step, I click, I get off, and then I go feed him. So I do that a few times, then I bring it closer, same first step, and then I'll kind of work my way around, and then I get up on the top step too. So he definitely seems fairly relaxed. I would like his neck to be level versus like raised a bit. Like there's definitely room for improvement, but he could be worse too. But that's kind of what I felt like his overall training had been, with just pure positive reinforcement. I feel like he needed something else. So I went on that top step there. And you can either move it around while you're on the first step, or you can go to the second step and then move it closer. It kind of depends on you and your horse. Doesn't really matter. If your horse is really flighty and spooky, maybe wait on the top step until you can go all the way around him. But I'm just kind of playing with how much he can handle here, really. So he's not doing too bad. But another downside to this would be you do have to feed a lot. Right now I'm using alfalfa pellets and he's just getting like 2 or 3 every time, but you do have to feed a lot and should keep your sessions pretty short. I think this video was originally like 30 minutes, maybe slightly longer, and then I condensed it down and sped it up. So I'm just going to scoot it closer and come and feed him. So really overall, it's an option as an exercise. What I really found was when I'm going ahead and desensitizing him and I'm going up on the block and then I'm saying, okay, I'm in this position, and I'm rewarding the position that he is also in too. So when I started this, I was like, okay, he's going to start associating me with food. And I was like, okay, so every time something scary happens, so like I get taller, the whip lash goes over his body, something scary happens and something good comes from it. So I want him to associate, oh, this thing brings good things. And that's not really what happened. And I definitely think it can, but I think Atlas had so much body tension that he was also associating how he felt and the tension in his body with what we're doing. So not only did he didn't necessarily think, oh, this, whatever desensitizing we were doing is good. He thought, what I'm doing is good, like holding this tension in, being kind of like not completely relaxed, but definitely not being a runaway, just kind of, but not good in the middle. Like it's kind of hard to explain. He's still tense in there. And he also thought that was what I wanted because that's what I've been clicking. So I think that is super important when you're doing clicker training, positive reinforcement with your horse. Like you're also rewarding the emotions with that, and those emotions can be stored in the horse's body, just like it can be stored in your body. Like you could be really tense and tight one day, and that can affect how you are. But I feel like it's more so for the horses. So I think that's what the biggest thing I got out of it was. And this might work a lot better if you have a horse that's a lot more calm and relaxed in their body, and then they can associate from there, and it would probably work a lot better with a domestic horse or maybe a really quiet Mustang. But I feel like Atlas had a lot of things to overcome, and he just needed to work through them, and I think he just kind of got stuck in the middle. But here we've moved to the other side, and I've just moved him over and then moved the mounting block over so that the camera can see, and then we're just kind of starting over. I like to start at his shoulder. He got scared again. I'm not sure what exactly spooked him. There's probably a horse running around or something in the background there, but I'm just going to wait for him. I'm hop down from the block, wait for it till he touches, and then come back up and then reward. So just giving him a second. I don't want to reward the spook response. I want to just give him a minute, and I'm just going to reset his cone here, but I just want to give him a minute to reset, and then we'll try again. So I'm just going to pretend it doesn't happen. It's not a big deal. And I'm definitely not going to punish him for it. So I'm just going to get him reset here. And then I'm just going to try like different ways of getting off the block and going to give him his treat. So, because even that for them could be kind of scary. They definitely notice everything. So, but this was pretty much the process. And I think I went from about his shoulder to his hip roughly. I didn't go all the way around him. I didn't go in front of him. But I was just kind of messing with this and seeing how it worked. I did not do this with Castor, my other Mustang. Castor is a lot more quiet and accepting of most things. He's obviously still wild, but I did not do this with him at all. I felt like Atlas, I was really stuck on a lot of things, so it did make me try a lot. So that was good. I learned a lot and I got a lot of stuff done. And explored more than I would normally if you have an easy horse. Hard horses will do that for you, so I recommend them. But so Castor, I did all the regular kind of desensitizing. Like I taught, well, not necessarily regular. He was in protective contact a lot, so I had him up against the panels, and then I would go from there and I would sit up on the panels and stuff. So he was at liberty for a lot of that, but then we were also doing stuff with the halter on and stuff. So he just kind of took to it a little bit easier, so I didn't really try this with him. So, but I feel like I probably have a little bit better outcome with him just because he's more relaxed overall, and he's more he usually keeps his body in a more relaxed position, so he's used to just really stretching his neck down and keeping it at least horizontal, so it probably would have worked a little bit better for him, but I did not use it on him. So but I've gotten a little bit closer to Atlas. He's actually doing pretty good here, but he still has that little bit level of tension because he brings his head up quickly, like he'll touch the cone and bring it back up, and it's sped up here because the video's sped up, but I would definitely like it to be slower. But overall, not bad for not seeing me above him for a few months. Not too bad, because really he sat in the field for a couple months without me doing a whole lot. But overall, not bad. We're just going to kind of make friends, make sure he's all right, and then put him up for the day. He did pretty good, and it was kind of a long session, so I don't want to do too much with him.